All right, guys, we're back again. This is a ECU out of a 94 Buick Park Avenue, the non-supercharged 3.8. Service number on this ECU is 16183247. This is for my nephew, and it was gifted to him by his godfather, and basically it would crank and no start. So I went through everything. We oscilloscoped the cam and crank sensor, replaced the cam and crank sensor, replaced the ignition control module, checked the MAF with an oscilloscope, checked the TPS, pretty much everything that we could think of, checked all the powers, all the grounds, and went through every single diagnostic thing that we could possibly think of. Our next step was to replace the ECU. I actually went through the GM diagnostic procedure for this, and it says disconnect the ICM connector, and I'll put some pictures up when I post this. So it says disconnect the ICM connector. I think it's a 14 pin, and pin number D is the fuel injector control. So that's basically the pulses that will tell the computer to pulse the injector. You should have a voltage that's visible on that line, and it's because it's basically a floating input until you give it power, which is what triggers the injector control. So with the ICM connected, I checked it and tried to pulse power to it. It had 5 volts, which is the floating voltage from the ICM, and when I unplugged the ICM, the line went full open, 0 voltage, 0 signal, 0 continuity at all. What I figured was, well, it looks like it's in the ECU then. So I probed the pin, and it's on the red connector. This is a 3-connector ECU. So it's got a big red one, a big white one, and a big blue one. And this is kind of an oddball, like an OBD 1.5 ECU. So it's kind of a pain to pull codes and things like that. But I figured, you know what, I'll back probe it at the ECU. And with the key on, there should have been at least some continuity. So it is the B8. So this is the A row down here. This is the B row here. And it starts here at number 1. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's our input right there for telling the computer that there's injector control. Now, if we look at all these resistors, these are all 271 codes. So if we go to the next one here, same thing, 271. So we should read 277. Okay, so that one's closer. We're going to check this one over here. That one is 275, so closer. So we might replace that one just to check something. But if we go to this one right here, which is that injector control, we have nothing. We have 0 continuity. Well, we're on a 2000 scale, so if I crank this thing up to 200 million, I get 3.8 million ohms. So if we go down to 20 million, let's see what it reads. It won't even read on 20M. And again, we're using just a cheap meter, but we should read, 300 ohms. So, or 270. So we're going to replace this resistor, and hopefully that'll fix it. Anyone else there with one of these weird oddball GM Gen, I guess this is a Gen 1.5 3.8 ECU. If you have a crank no start condition, check these resistors as a first start. If that doesn't solve it, then we can start following this down, but that's going to be our first diagnostic after all the other diagnostics. So I'm going to do that, and we'll report back.
A few moments later.
All right, everybody, we're back. We plugged it back into the car, and we still had no continuity to that fuel injector control input over here. So we spent an hour or so figuring out where this pad, let me bring up the microscope here so we can actually see. So I ended up actually putting a SMD resistor in there. Don't mind my solder job, it's kind of rough. We also only had a 240, so I'm going to order a couple of 270s or see if there's another board I can pilfer some off of, but trying to figure out where from the input pin through the resistor through a I guess that's a cap to ground, and then where this via goes down into the 4-layer board. So it took a while, and basically from here it goes all the way over to this pad right here. So we'll pull that up here on the microscope. Let's see, there we go. Oops, little focus action. There we go. All right, so basically from this pad here into these two resistors. So in this resistor's 3322, so it's supposed to be 33.2K, and it read basically extremely high. It read in like the 400K range. So we're going to replace that one real quick and go check it again, because this is on the back side of one of the main Delco chips. So I'm hoping that that one is the one that does the fueling control, and hopefully we'll have a problem solved. So I'm going to try that and report back.